This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
It's all sunshine and roses down in Allen Park, but how much of it do we believe? Teryl Austin, when will he be a head coach? Why is he not yet a head coach? And a very fun new segment we're going to preview for you. All that and more today on the Hindsight 20. It's the Hindsight 20 podcast, the Detroit Lions podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Jerry Mallory. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. As always, a proud member of the Detroit Sports Podcasting Network. It's not just me. It's a slew. I like to use that word sometime. It's kind of cool. It's a slew of characters, a cast and crew, if you will. Do yourself a favor and subscribe. If you got iTunes, if you got Android, use Podbay. You know the spiel. You've been listening to this show long enough, and you know that I'm not the only one a part of this network. So do yourself a favor and check out the whole crew. Today's show, it should be a fun one. Like I mentioned, you know, it's all sunshine and roses down in Allen Park, down at the OTAs. And if all these things that they're saying is true, if all these things came to fruition, if all these players who are, you know, slated to be starters and slated to improve, if all these things actually happened, we'd be looking at, you know, an eventual Super Bowl contender, as is the case with every team right now at this point of the season, the off season, I should say. There's a lot of positivity going around. How much of it can we believe? Well, that remains to be seen. What I'm going to do at this time, though, is give you some of the positive spiel, because if you go on, you know, MLive or Free Press or Detroit News, the positivity from the Lions, from the beat writers, it's overflowing. And the beat writers are pretty much, they're just saying what's being given to them. They're saying what Jim Caldwell is saying, what some of the leaders like, you know, Haloti Ngata or Matthew Stafford, the things that they're saying, some of the coaches like Teryl Austin. A lot of positivity going on. I'm going to talk about 4 of them, actually 5. The 5th one we're going to save. We're going to tackle some listener questions. We haven't done that in a while. We're going to do that in the second half of the show. But 4 of them I'm going to talk about right here and now, based on reports that have come out, you know, interviews, et cetera, et cetera. And after we talk about each one, what we'll do is kind of rank them. Okay, number 4 is least likely to happen, down to number 1, which would be the most, you know, likely scenario, the most believable out of all the positive things that are coming out in Allen Park. So we got to set the tone a little bit, because, you know, the way they've got things going, they're celebrating down there, right? They've got a Super Bowl winning team, because there's so much positive news coming out. So we're going to set the tone a little bit, get the music that's fitting of some of these cornbread, Honolulu blue and silver, homeristic stories. And it's not just the Lions. You'll get this with all 32 teams this time of the year. So starting off, it's Alex Carter. And, you know, he's practicing with the first team. If he were to actually end up being a starter and an effective starter, yeah, it's time to celebrate good time in the first year. He's been practicing with the first team, and that says a lot. Now, no matter if it comes to fruition or not, if it comes true, the fact that he's being put in that spot already, you know, year 2, technically year 1 of actual playing, because last year was pretty much a red-shirted, injury-filled year. I mean, that's pretty big. Now, cornerbacks, rookie cornerbacks seem to struggle. There's always your exceptions. You know, your Ronald Darby's, rookie cornerback for the Buffalo Bills. Not even Marcus Peters, who people look at because he had, 8 interceptions? And I believe he was a Pro Bowl player or candidate for defensive player, rookie of the year. I don't know if he won it or not. I'm sorry. I didn't do my Marcus Peters research, but even he struggled. You know, he had 8 interceptions, but he was really bad in coverage, got burned a lot of times. You talk to anyone in Kansas City that actually watched the games, instead of us just looking at the stats, and Marcus Peters, despite the interceptions last year, struggled. But then there's always, like I said, your Ronald Darby's. You know, can Alex Carter be that exception? We don't know. But at the moment, you know, he's getting first team reps on a team that already had, I'll say, a decent to solid number 2. You know, Nevin Lawson, when he stepped in for Rasheem Mathis last year, did very serviceable. And you feel comfortable with him being your second in command at cornerback. The other guy, Darren Walls, who we brought in from New York, another guy that has starting experience and is a veteran. But Alex Carter's the one. He's obviously the one with the most upside, the most promise. He's got youth on his side. He's got ideal size and speed, comes from Stanford. I love the kid coming out of college. I was gushing about the pick, loved one of my favorite draft picks that year. I wanted to draft him. There was a number of cornerbacks I liked in the second or third round. P.J. Williams that year, and Alex Carter was one of them. So now that he's getting an opportunity to even scrimmage with the first team, it says something about what he's shown so far. Now, the flip side is, Nevin Lawson could be looking pretty bad, and Darren Walls, etc. But I'm willing to say it's probably more so this young guy. So far, Alex Carter looking solid. Now, we'll have to wait and see, how this all pans out. And just because he gets first team reps right now doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. But so far, I'll say it's so good. The next Celebrate Good Times cornbread piece is Riley Reiff, adjusting just fine to right tackle. Now, this is someone who is on a contract year. He's been a left tackle for several seasons now. We drafted him to be the eventual successor to Jeff Backus, and he did just that. He started 47 out of the possible 48 games, so he's durable, and he's been a serviceable left tackle. He's had some good years, and he's had some lean years. In comes Taylor Decker, brand new. And I'm putting up quotations, you can't see it. Some experts said that he might only be a guard at the next level. We knew that was tomfoolery. We knew that was boulderdash. That was foolishness. It was poppycock. Any other old English word you want to use. It was stupid. We knew he'd be a tackle. We knew he could potentially and eventually be a left tackle. We even on this show said as a prediction that he would end up being the starting left tackle in his very first game. He's getting first team reps at left tackle already, so this is a combo. The fact that Riley Reiff is adjusting well to right tackle, and also the fact that Taylor Decker, now, Caldwell's talking about it, and the team is talking about it. It's not a secret. They're straight up talking about Riley Reiff as a right tackle. It's kind of a double Celebrate Good Times. The fact that Riley Reiff is adjusting well, and the fact that Taylor Decker slated to be that next guy up. That's pretty big, would you say? So yes, it's a dual Celebrate Good Time type of story. Riley Reiff adjusting the right tackle, no issues so far. Someone that we already thought, would maybe be more suited to play right eventually anyway. And then the fact that Taylor Decker has looked good enough. He's not supplanting Joe Thomas, like I said before. He's not supplanting, whoever, Jason Peters. But he is supplanting a guy that started for several years at left tackle and has been good enough. So the fact that they've got him there right off the bat, that's a dual good story. Let's hit up a little bit more music. The next Celebrate Good Time is Amir Abdullah. Looks like his health is doing okay. He had the shoulder surgery, and we were worried, as far as training camp or regular season, how much of a setback would this young man have? Well, all reports are coming out that he's right on schedule. And he should be good to go for training camp. That's big because, we need him to get the reps. He had, some good games. He showed some promise, especially the last 8 games when the offensive scheme changed. He got more comfortable. He secured the ball better. The offensive line improved. Everything kind of mashed together, and Amir Abdullah had a really fine second half of the year. And so we're hoping that with his health, and the shoulder surgery not being too much of a setback, that he can come out and provide and produce and just kind of hit the ground running, because we're going to need him as soon as the regular season starts. Now, the last piece is A'Shawn Robinson. All reports, if you read them live or Freep or Detroit News, saying that he is picking up the scheme quite well. He is adjusting well. He is a professional. He's working hard. He's showing strength. Now, remember, in Alabama, his assignment was different. The Detroit defensive scheme is to go and get the quarterback, to attack. Your defensive tackles, you must attack instead of taking up space, being an assigned player to kind of free up the linebackers. The defensive tackles are expected to do damage themselves. So with it being an adjustment of scheme and him being a rookie, you would say it might take a little while. I was expecting, when I saw a headline of A'Shawn Robinson, I expected to say something along the lines of, he's struggling so far. he's not adjusting to the scheme quite yet. It's going to take a little time, but we didn't get that. We got that he's picking up well. And Haloti Ngata comes out and says, this man has, he's a hard worker, he's strong, he's as good as advertised, if not better. And so all the reports are positive. When, I wasn't crazy about him. I was really talking about as a first round pick, because at this point he was rumored to be a first round pick. And then, so in the second round, I was okay with it. A lot of people started saying this could be the steal of the draft. Well, so far, so good. And the common theme that you'll hear is that none of these guys have put on pads. So Alex Carter looking good with the first team. Ashawn Robinson, they haven't put on pads. So things could change. But so far, we are celebrating good times. So now that we've got the cornbread and the good times out of the way, let's go ahead and rank these stories. Like I said, we're going to go from 4 to 1. Number 4 being the least believable story, the one I don't think will come to fruition, the one that, I'm just not really buying. And then number 1, ranked as the story that I believe the most, and the one that I think will come to fruition when it comes to that time, when the regular season rolls around. I'm expecting this story to hold true. And so starting off number 4 is Alex Carter with the first team. This is one of the ones I would love to believe, the most, or right up there, because you want all these cornbread, sunshine, OTA stories to be true. I would really be rooting for this one. I just don't think it's going to happen. I'm a firm believer of the struggle being real, for first-year defensive backs, specifically cornerbacks. Darius Slay, we love him, and he's now becoming one of the best cornerbacks in the league. I think he's a top 10 corner. He's climbing toward that shutdown level, and not just the opinion of Lions fans, just even the national, media is starting to give him a little bit of credit. Do you remember his first year though? Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was one of those first years where it's like, dude, this guy isn't looking good. I don't know. It's not the case for everybody, but in the case of Alex Carter and practicing with the first team, I think this is the one that's most likely to not hold true. If he could be a rotational player this year, kudos to him. I think Nevin Lawson takes his spot, or even Darren Walls, and ultimately he does not end up being our starter. If he does, man, that's impressive for him. And I don't think it will be as much of an indictment on Lawson or Darren Walls, especially Lawson. I think it will just mean Alex Carter looks that good, but I'm not buying it. Out of all of them, I give that one a good old Dwight Schrute.
False.
Don't think it's going to happen. One more time, Mr. Schrute.
False.
One more time for good measure.
False.
I think it's going to be false. He's practicing with the first team, but I don't think it will come to fruition. Number 3 is Amir Abdullah. Now, I'd love to be the one to say, the health will be there and it won't be any setbacks. It's a shoulder surgery, man. And he had trouble with, fumbling, struggles. He's supposed to be ready from training camp. I'm not saying he won't be, but the ill effects, I think, of all these stories, after Alex Carter, I think we will see ill effects. So it might mean that Stephen Ridley will get a larger load, or even Zach Zenner or Theo Reddick. Whereas, we want Amir Abdullah to be that feature back, that number 1 back, and he will be. I think the shoulder surgery, the injury, will set him back to the point where he might not be ready day 1 of training camp. So that one gets a partial Dwight Schrute, not a just full out false, but just a partial. Now these next two, they're leaning toward the positive. Number 2 is Ashawn Robinson picking up the scheme well. The more I hear about people talking about him, and granted it's the Lions, and so they're going to spin things the best, the more confidence I am in him. Even his buddy, Jerron Reed. And again, these people all have motives, former teammates, current teammates. But, I wish I can just walk up to Haloti Ngata or one of these guys and say, I know what you're saying in front of everyone, but what's the truth? Tell me the real, how does this guy really look? Because if in the second round you pick up a guy that could be, a fixture on your defensive line, and you already got Taylor Decker, you really hit a double to a triple to a home run with these two guys, potentially. So, it's hard to say, but the more you hear people say good things about them, the better you feel. I would love to just, find Haloti Ngata somewhere, at a bar, and I don't know, maybe his favorite drink is a Corona, and I sit him down, and he's getting comfortable with me, and I slide that question in, Ashawn Robinson, man, how's he looking? Don't give me that, media spiel. I want you to look me in my eyes.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
Tell the truth, man. I'm leaning toward that they are saying some truth to that there is some truth to the things that they are saying. You can avoid questions. You can work around it. You can say things like, "Oh, he's a rookie. He's getting along. He's learning." But they're being pretty demonstrative. They're saying like straight up, he's picking up the scheme. He's looking good. Again, no pads. And I'm ranking these stories. I'm not saying, oh, A'Shawn's going to be defensive rookie of the year. I'm ranking the stories, the sunshine story. All of them might end up being false, okay? But I'm guessing at least one will probably have some weight to it, and I'm ranking them. Number one is Riley Reef. I mean, there's no reason to believe he won't adjust well. Number one, he's got a lot of money on the line. Now, he wants to be a left tackle, but hey, you can be a left tackle and make, $10 million a year, or you can be, a sub and make $2 million, or you can be a solid right tackle and make $6 to $7 to $8 million a year yourself. So whether it's the Lions paying him or someone else paying him, he does have an incentive. It is his contract year, so he's going to toe the line. Okay, he's not going to sit here and pout. He's been a professional this whole time, so there's no reason to believe he's going to change. Money may be an incentive, but he's always shown to be a professional, someone that works hard, someone that tries hard. And I think it will be a nice transition, and he should adjust just fine at right tackle. So out of all the sunshine stories, like I said, Alex Carter as a first teamer, as a rookie, really, I know it's his second year technically, but as a rookie on the field, not buying it. Amir Abdullah, that shoulder, I'm a little worried about more so than what they're saying. A'Shawn, the more I hear, the more I feel comfortable. I would love to, like I said, sit down, Haloti Ngata, and just, look him in the eyes and,
tell the truth.
I would tell him that from a distance because he's a big boy and he's strong. And, Will Smith said that kind of, he said that he worded that strongly. I don't think I would word too many things strongly to Haloti Ngata, but in a nice way, I would ask him to tell the truth after a couple of Coronas and say, man, what's up with A'Shawn? Is this guy really as good as you guys are saying? I'm starting to believe it a little bit. And then, like I said, Riley Reef, no reason to doubt that he will be strong. He will be ready. He will be available and contribute greatly at the right tackle spot. Next up, it's time to talk about Teryl Austin. He came out this week and said, yeah, he's ready to be a head coach. He wants to be a head coach. Last 2 seasons, he's done some interviews. He's been a candidate. A couple of spots. I don't know if he was actually a finalist in Atlanta a couple of years ago, but it seemed like he was. But he's still our defensive coordinator, which we appreciate. We definitely love the fact that, he's still here. He's done some good things. But the clock is ticking, and I think this will be his last year as a coordinator, provided, the Lions and the defense of Teryl Austin goes well. And I think it will, especially the fact that they kind of piece things together. Seemed like they transitioned to life without Levy and life without Sue last year toward the end of the season. DeAndre Levy is back. Another year for Slay, another year for Ansah, to hear Whitehead in a more natural, comfortable position, improved health. So far, all this can change. Guys get hurt. But right now, you're looking to see a better Haloti Ngata because he'll be healthy. Teron Walker. And so, the defense looked to be better. And so with a phenomenal 2014 where it was like, one of the top 2 defenses to a average to slightly below average 2015 and an improvement in 2016, I think he will be a head coach. Why hasn't it happened yet? I don't think this one has to do with race. We already know, with minorities and coaching opportunities, we're not going to beat around the bush. Minorities don't get the same opportunities to be head coaches. It's just a fact. It's a reason why these rules like the Rooney Rule exist. Sometimes people have an issue with things such as affirmative action, or they have an issue with things like the Rooney Rule because they feel like sometimes, and I'm not going to get on this whole spiel. I'm going to say this real quick. They may feel like, someone may be accepted just because they're a minority. But let's backtrack. Why do these things exist in the first place? Why are they there? They're there for a reason. They're there because in the absence of them, there's a far greater number of people missing out on opportunities. Yes, there are times with the Rooney Rule or affirmative action where there may be someone more qualified that doesn't get a job that's in the majority. However, with the absence of those rules, in my opinion, a greater number of minorities would not get their shot. So, so to kind of put that in layman's terms, when these rules come out, maybe let's just say if 10 non-minorities miss out because of a Rooney Rule, without a Rooney Rule, I'd say 30 to 40 to 50 minorities would miss out. So I say all that to say that I do believe that there are fewer opportunities. I do also believe that things are getting better, and that's great. But in the case of Teryl Austin, I don't think this is why he has not been given a head coaching job just yet. I think it has to do with experience. The first year as a coordinator, and it was good. It was a good year. But if I'm an owner, I'm taking a wait-and-see approach. Second year, getting closer. He's getting warmer now. I think after the third year, if everything goes smooth, that he'll get a shot. I don't think race has necessarily held him back. I could be wrong, but it's my opinion that it has more so to do with his lack of experience. You're giving a guy the keys to your team as the head coach. You might want more than 1 year, maybe even more than 2 years. 3 solid years, continued success on the defense. I think the defense is going to bounce back this year and be better than they were in 2015. He will be there. Now, who are some of the candidates? Who are some of his competitors? I put a list, and I've broken them up into categories of those that he's going to be competing against for head coaching vacancies next year. So first off, it's NCAA. And, I'm not going to name all the names, your Art Brills and et cetera, et cetera. There's always the chance of an NCAA coach coming in and swooping up a job or two. After that, there are guys that are like the old guard. They've had a shot before. They'll get a shot again, especially when they're younger. Now, Josh McDaniels falls into that category. He had some time with New England, and he was the head coach there in Denver. Didn't work out too good. He's now back as a coordinator with the Patriots, and things seem to be going well. Doug Marrone's another one. He stepped away from the Bills job. There was some fighting or some issues between him and the front office. Doug Marrone, ex of Syracuse, I want to say. Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't worry. Had a pretty good tenure there with the Bills. He was like 15-17, so right around 500. Seemed to turn them around. He's now at Jacksonville. I could definitely see someone ringing his phone, ringing his doorbell, offering him a head coaching gig. And then, believe it or not, guys, it's probably going to happen. Old Jimmy boy, Jim Schwartz, will probably get another head coaching opportunity. I don't know when it's going to be, or rather where it's going to be, but his name will be talked about this year. And he may, in fact, land a spot. He may get another head coaching gig. He'll be one of the first, of many Lions head coaches that once they leave here, that's it. They don't get another shot. I think he'll be one of the ones to help in breaking the mold, and he'll get another shot. Now, the hotshot coordinators is Teryl Austin. The other one's Matt Patricia. He's the defensive coordinator there with the New England Patriots, done really good things. There's been rumors that guys like Matt Patricia or even Josh McDaniels could be the next coaches for the Detroit Lions. Well, we know because of the connection with Bob Quinn, they have experience. And so even when Jim Caldwell's job was kind of on the line and kind of iffy, those guys were talked about as potential replacements. So, Teryl Austin's ready. Is the league ready for him? Not quite yet, but I think they're getting close. This may be the last year that we'll have the services of Teryl Austin, unless, not trying to be all conspiracy, theorists here, but if Jim Caldwell doesn't work out, Austin may be a candidate even here in Detroit. We don't like to talk negatively about, Mr. Jim Caldwell. You remember last season, or, we pretty much said he was dead man walking. We thought he was out the door, and, he survived. So, but seriously, Teryl Austin probably is our last year with him unless something crazy happens. So he's ready. The NFL not quite ready, but they're getting really, really close. And I can see him flourishing as a head coach. All right, guys, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to tackle some listener questions over on Twitter, and then we'll talk about that new segment that we won't feature today, but we'll preview it today and roll it out next week. So stay right here on the Hindsight 20 podcast. Jerry Mallory here for the Hindsight 20 podcast. It's simple. Your ad can be placed right here. Send us an email, hindsight20podcast@gmail.com. All right, we're back on the Hindsight 20. It's the third period, the last third of the show, and we're going to tackle some questions. We haven't done that in quite a while, and so what we like to do at this point is head over to Twitter. where a few of our listeners, we appreciate you chiming in. I'm at Jerry Mallory NFL. If you ever want to follow me or send me a line or just say hi, ask a question, whatever you like to do, we love to facilitate that for you. So looking at Twitter, a couple of the questions, we'll start off with this one from Rico Rogers 84. He asked, will Kyle Van Noy contribute this year or will he be a bust? Well, he was number 5 of the Sunshine at OTAs, the Celebrate Good Times Come On OTA stories. I decided not to talk about him because, doing my show prep, you asked the question, so I decided to let that be talked about now. And the answer, we don't know, but the signs are good so far. When you've got John Bostic there, who I think is very serviceable, he's got some good speed. You've got Josh Bynes, who's looked good, but Van Noy is the one who is the starter as of right now, first team reps. That's a good sign. You look at pictures of him, he is in better shape. The speed he's always had. The issue with him has been awareness. That is something that you can develop. That is something that can improve and get better as your tenure in the NFL increases. Now, some guys just never get it, but some guys do. There was a quote talking about why you see some guys, and Teryl Austin was talking about this, why you see some guys get cut or they're not re-signed with their team, and then all of a sudden they become good players to stars. It takes guys, sometimes several years to click. Injuries can get in the way, transition, taking care of body. There's a number of things that can happen. You can look no further than your own Detroit Lions and DeAndre Levy. We drafted him out of Wisconsin, tried him out at middle linebacker, the whole 9 yards. And he wasn't as bad as Van Noy, but, he wasn't looking that great. Okay. And to the point where I remember doing a podcast when I was doing the Private Detroit podcast, and the question came up, who should we re-sign out of our outside linebackers? And it was between Justin Durant and DeAndre Levy. You see what I mean? It took him several years. We re-signed DeAndre Levy that year, and it paid dividends because it was like his 4th year or so where he completely turned things around. And we see the player that we do now. So I have confidence that it can be the same case with Kyle Van Noy. I liked him at BYU. He looked good. His scheme, the things that he did, there was some adjustment. He played some defensive end and was all over the field. Now he has to dedicate himself to one spot at the outside linebacker, and the awareness, it has to improve. Now, in practice, it has looked good. You've heard several stories about him improving, but until we actually see him in a game, we don't know. But if I got to go to the two extremes of him being a major contributor or him being a bust, I'll go with a major contributor. The question Rico asked, though, was contribute this year. That's like somewhere in between. Contribute this year means, he's a starter to a guy getting a lot of snaps. Doesn't have to be a star. I'm definitely leaning towards that more so than him being a bust after seeing him with the first team and hearing what the coaches have to say. His job is on the line. It's so shaky for guys like him and Gabe Wright, and you're not hearing much about Gabe, with injuries and different things. Kyle Van Noy is taking this opportunity to fight for a job all the way to the point of being a starter right now. Gabe Wright, you're not hearing as much. He does have one fewer year, so they may give him time, but we'll have to wait and see. Really good question, though. Appreciate that, Mr. Rico Rogers, and look forward to hearing from you a little bit more. Next up is Chris Roberts, DET. He says, lots of talk about NFL and coverage. Any stories of covering the Lions with Private Detroit? Easy, hard. I won't call it hard because I love talking about the Lions, first and foremost. I love talking about sports. And so, there's times where your schedule doesn't always mesh well and things come up. But ultimately, what I'm doing right now is what I enjoy to do. It's something that I do all the time anyway. When I was at school, when I was at work, hanging with my friends, I just have a format now to reach more people, and I appreciate it. So I would never really call it hard because it's a game that I love to watch and I love to talk about. The only difficulties sometimes is your content, making sure everything is fresh. This time of year, it can be a little stretch, to find things that's of interest because it's kind of a lull in activity. We don't get a ton of access. It seems as though the Lions are doing better now with SB Nation or even with Detroit Sports Podcast of giving us coverage or access. We're the little dogs, and so we don't get the interviews and different things like that, although sometimes we do. The guys at Pride Detroit are very flexible with me. The writers, they do the meat and potatoes. I swoop in and do a podcast here and there and some videos, and they're very supportive, and I appreciate that. And so they make it easy for me. Even if I didn't always want to talk about the Lions, which I pretty much always do, those guys make it easy. Same with the Detroit Sports Podcast. Doc Macaroon, that's my guy. Very cooperative, flexible. He's given me insight and resources and you name it. Can't say thank you to that guy enough, as well as the Jock. Both of those guys, Doc and Jock, they're primo, man. It's a reason why they're at the top of this whole Detroit Sports Podcast thing. And so they make it easy for me. And if ever something were weird to happen and I were to, get a little bit of coverage or, I can do this for a living or, I made it, quote unquote, I would certainly not forget these guys. And they're all good guys. And I would do everything I could to have them join me, wherever I go. I would make sure that they're a part of it. I would be talking to people saying, hey, I know some good guys, getting them in because they make even the things that are a little bit hard easy for me. Any stories? I do have one story, well, two briefly in terms of coverage, and they both are revolving around interviews. So my very first interview was with Matt Stafford, and I'm nervous. I just started doing this thing, and lo and behold, I got a chance to interview Stafford. This was like 4 years ago. My equipment was subpar. I didn't know how to really record a phone conversation. It was all types of craziness. And so I got him on there, and we're going, and halfway through, my recording mechanism cuts out. I'm like, oh, man, I had to apologize. And I don't know if we started over or what we did. I think we stopped. So I held him up for like 3-4 minutes, and he's doing the whole press junket thing. He's promoting something. So he's going from place to place to place. The dude was so cool. And I think I was always a fan of Stafford, but I became even more of a fan because he was laid back and cool, and he didn't make me feel bad. He didn't seem rushed or irritated. He's just like, hey, man, it's cool. I'm apologizing. He's like, oh, no problem. Just, go ahead and get it fixed, bro. I'm ready to start back up when you are. That's cool. And you hear stories about Stafford. You hear things like that from several people. This guy is a multi-millionaire. He's the king of Detroit sports, if you will, at the top of the food chain. And, that gets to a lot of people's heads. And I'm sure it gets to all of their heads in some way, shape, or form. But it seems as though he doesn't let it affect him too much. I've heard of people running into him, and he's laid back, and he's cool, and he's cordial, and just from my personal experience, like I said, messed up halfway through, he was cool about it. The second one, when I interviewed Brandon Pettigrew, not so nice. I had to ask about the drops, and he didn't like it. He was kind of brief. He was abrupt. He was, after I asked about that, not the nicest of guys. But, it is what it is. Cliff Averill interviewed him. Oh, he was cool, man. We talked probably 15, 20 minutes after talking about music. He was the first person that kind of put me up on J. Cole, talking about him as a rapper and / singer, however you want to look at him, an entertainer, hip hop guy. We talked about fashion. The whole nine. Cliff Averill was really cool. In fact, instead of the middleman, a lot of times you get a middle person that calls you and then you kind of talk. I actually talked to him. He called me directly and things went good. So that's my experiences of covering the Lions with both Detroit Sports Podcast and with Pride Detroit. Overall, I love doing it. The last question is from Honolulu Past Blue at Honolulu Past Blue on Twitter. He says the tight end crisis needs to be addressed for sure. More of a statement than a question, but I get what he's saying. I'm going to comment on it. I agree, with Pettigrew and the ACL and then Tim Wright not panning out. We saw what happened last year. We got to a point and Ebron had got hurt. It was looking really rough. I don't think it's as bad this year, though. For one, Ebron is healthy enough as of right now. Pettigrew, they're saying he's ahead of schedule, so that's good. Then you got, they're going to roll with 3 tight ends, in my opinion. And so that last spot, who will it go to? I'm liking Cole Wick, undrafted free agent out of whatever, Incarnate, blah, blah, blah. I've got confidence that he may be a key contributor, at least as a third tight end. And then there's always the chance that, we might have to scour the free agent market. Andrew Corliss, ex of the Green Bay Packers, is a guy that's available. I'm not as worried at this point of the year. I feel like, they're saying that Pettigrew is ahead of schedule. You have no reason to not believe that. And then Eric Ebron seems to be healthy enough. Cole Wick, Adam Fween, both undrafted free agents. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them made the team as the third tight end. I think we might be in better shape than Honolulu Past Blue is saying. But I get what you're saying, man. I'm saying all those things, but it could go south, and we don't want what happened last year to happen, where we were super, super thin for quite a while there at tight end. All right, guys, before we get out of here, it's time to talk about a new segment. We might not do this every week, but we will definitely be rolling this out next week. And it's one of those deals where the Lions have a history. Whether you want to call it good or bad, it's a history, and it's very rich. One of my favorite television shows does just that. Look at some key moments in sports. And so here at the Hindsight 20, it's time for us to do the same thing, but with a Lions twist. 30 for 30 is, who doesn't like 30 for 30? You don't even have to like sports, all right? My sister isn't a huge sports fan. She loves 30 for 30. My wife, moderate sports fan, loves 30 for 30. It's one of the best things going on TV, the documentary that we all love. You come on 97.1 and you hear Terry Foster with his spiel with the music playing. You love it. We all love it, okay? Imitation is the simplest form of flattery. And you know what? Here at Hindsight 20, it's time. It's time to get our flattery on at the purest form, at the simplest form. It's time for Hindsight 20 for 20. The Lions have, they have a rich history. Like I said, it's not always good. Sometimes it's bad, but there's a lot to talk about. And we're at that time of the year where we have that flexibility to sit here and to talk about and discuss some of the ins and outs of what is our beloved team. So, what is the first topic, the first show, the first 20 for 20 segment, Hindsight 20 for 20? Come on. If you're talking Detroit Lions, what's the first thing that you think of, huh? I'm going to give you a second to ponder that. When you think of the Detroit Lions, what's the first thing that pops in your head, especially if you're talking about Detroit Lions history? What comes to mind? Well, what if I told you that the greatest player to never win resided in Detroit? What if I told you a record could have been put so far out of reach, players would not have even tried to attempt to get to it? What if I told you one of the biggest myths about this man and his team was completely false? It's Hindsight 20 for 20 in its very first episode, covering the GOAT, Barry Sanders. It's only right, guys. Barry Sanders. And what we're going to do is it's not just going to be me. I'm going to have a panel of people discuss their thoughts about Barry, the first time they saw Barry, their reaction when Barry Sanders retired. I'm going to talk about that myth. A lot of people like to say one thing about Barry and his team that I don't think is 100% true. We're going to have some special guests, and I think none more special, in my opinion, than Jerry Mallory, Sr. That's right. I'm going to have my dad. He's going to give his spiel about Barry Sanders. My foundation for sports is built off of my relationship with my dad. That's what we did. Coming up, we talked about sports. We watched sports. It's a bond that we still have. And years ago, when I used to do a little wrestling hotline, I had the privilege of him joining me. And so we're coming full circle. You're talking about 16, 17 years later. Here we are, still doing what we do, still talking about sports. I'm going to have a couple of people giving their spiel and opinion on Barry Sanders in our first Hindsight 20 for 20 segment. I'm going to try to grab at least one guy from Prior Detroit. I'm going to try to grab at least one person from Detroit Sports Podcast. Chris Gandy, if you're listening, you're my man. You know I always want to throw you in on anything like this. And yes, we will have the one and only Jerry Mallory Sr. joining us on the Hindsight 20 for 20 segment, episode 1, The GOAT, Barry Sanders. Guys, this has been a fun show. Next show is going to be fun as well. It's time to talk about Barry Sanders. It's time to talk about all of the things that he meant for the Detroit Lions. But before we move too far in the future, let's digest today's show. We had a great opportunity to sit here and dish about the sunshine at OTAs. Are all of those things true? Well, we don't really know. We have to sit back and wait and see how many of them will actually come to fruition. In addition to that, there is Teryl Austin. Is he going to be a head coach? I think it's coming. It's a lot closer than a lot of you realize. And I'm thinking this may be the very last year that we have the services of one Teryl Austin in Honolulu Blue and Silver. Able to tackle a few of the questions, which was enjoyable. As always, I'm at Jerry Mallory NFL. You can feel free to leave those questions. For the 20 for 20 segment with Barry Sanders, please, by all means, if you want to set up something where you're giving comments on Twitter, if you even want your voice to be heard, send me a line on Twitter. We'll make it happen. I would love to get a few of the listeners' spiel on their opinions of Barry, how he was the greatest of all time, if they thought he was, when he left, etc., etc. Guys, it's been a fun show. We're going to have some more fun next Monday. Until then, I'm at Jerry Mallory NFL, and I'm out of here. Thank each and every one of you for listening to the Hindsight 20 podcast.